Welcome to Homesroom. Just like Homeroom, we start off our day getting together with our homies, swapping stories, even a little kiss and tell action. This podcast contains language not suitable for younger listeners, topics about sex and mental health. Discretion is advised. Our views are our own. Let class begin.
Welcome back to Homesroom. I got a guest again. With me today is a true open and honest speaker, the lovely Lyuba Venable. How's it going? Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Matt. It's amazing. I'm just, like we haven't started talking, but I feel this like tingling excitement. I'm looking
Good.
forward to it.
Good. That's always the kind of I always tell people when they ask what the most nervous part about the podcast is, I'm always like, it's like right before I hit record, and I'm just like, ugh. And then as soon as we hit record, it's just excitement. So yeah. But welcome, number one. Number two, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Like as of today, I live my passion. I finally found something that I really love, and this is sex education. That I get to work with people one-on-one. I call myself a sex and relationship coach, and I work with individuals and couples. And I get to be, like that, the person that people share a fantasy for the first time, or they experience intimacy for the first time, or feeling like opening the doors for people, like to something new, exciting. And I can't believe it's work. I call it work because it's just so much fun, and I'm really loving talking about this topic. I'm an open book about my life, my sexuality, my relationship. So I'm very excited to answer any questions and to be at service for your audience.
Yeah, that is exactly what I love. I got really into podcasts maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and like I a lot of the podcasts that like spoke to me were sex and relationship podcasts, and not because it was like stories that just made me like excited, but it was like, man, people are actually talking about this stuff so openly, and it made me ask myself those questions. So getting guests like you on, like, I hope that somebody else has that same experience and I'm able to generate those conversations. So I love having people on that are like, sex educators or people that are just open and honest, because I believe the world needs more of those conversations and not less of them.
Yeah.
So
Exactly, yes. And it just sadly we have a lot of shame, a lot of taboo around sex topic, right? And because of that, people just don't have a platform to talk, like if something doesn't work. Like if
yeah.
everything works, it's great, right? But then especially when something is like, oh, I can't reach orgasm or I don't have erection, like when something is really challenging, it's like there is so much shame to even bring it up.
Yeah.
And we are here, to talk about everything and anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I 100% agree. And that's kind of the nature of people is shame. And I am trying to create a space where like what we can talk about here is completely open and honest. There's no judgment. There's no shame like for any of it. But most importantly, there's no shame in asking the question. I used to be a coach for a sports team, and we used to have every month we'd have one practice where I'd let everybody sit on the ground like school, and just be like, hey, who has a dumb question? Whatever the dumb question is, like, you ask your dumb question and we'll just go around. A question you're afraid to ask, a question that like you don't want to ask normally to a group of people because like you're afraid you're going to get made fun of, or it's too it doesn't have to be about what we're doing right now. It could be about anything with this sport. And I think they always responded well to that. And I think that those conversations are important for people to know that like it's okay to have a dumb question, or to go forward and like be like, I have an issue and I want to get it addressed because I want to live my best life. So
Exactly, yeah. Like I would love to be in that group where you invited to ask a dumb question, because for a while I am the person. I used to be a person, I always have a question, but there is this like a fear that it's dumb, that it's a very stupid question, so I would never ask it. So I always have a question but not asking it. So invitation like yours is just so, like inviting and shamifying.
Yeah, that's what I hope. So, just jumping right in, because I'm one of those people that, like, I don't, when I want to do something, I'm just gonna, like, I'm not gonna, like, dip my toe in it. I'm just gonna go for it. So I want to ask you,
Love it.
how did you become so connected to your body and your partner's body as well? Like, what was that? What sparked that for you?
Mm. Wow, this is like, see, this is such a beautiful, deep, amazing question. Because starting with my body, um, I like as I do, like, as I study sexuality topic, there is correlation how much I love and accept my body, that much I can enjoy sex. So
Mhm.
if I have shame, if like I don't like my body, then I won't be able to enjoy sex, no matter how amazing my partner is. For a while I thought like, oh, I will find that perfect lover. And no matter how great lover is, me not being connected to my body and mostly judging my body was getting in the way, right? And so um, just exploring when I went to sexuality, intimacy workshops, just exploring, okay, I don't think my body is great. What I don't like about my body. And there is always like a body part that we specifically don't like, and then there is a story attached to it. Because when we are born, we don't think that like, oh, like those chubby thighs or those cheeks
Mhm.
that they're fat, right? Like everyone is adored. But then as we growing up, we hear that like a comment, someone said something, we saw something on TV. So for me, my breasts, that I have small size breasts, and so for a while I was ashamed. I grew like long hair to cover my breasts, like I would round my back, right? And then no wonder like I couldn't feel anything, like I couldn't feel any sensation. Like when my partner touches my breasts, I don't feel anything. So I completely removed any feels from that body part. And then when I started exploring and like falling in love with it and opening up and removing that story, that it was amazing to see how it transformed. And especially in my case, like I got pregnant and I had a child, and then my kid would be like crazy about my breasts, like like the moment
Yeah.
he sees my breasts, he just like he wants to breastfeed, right? And so that helped me to have another person, even it's not sexual, but to have someone who adores this body part that I neglected for so long. So that created this acceptance and healing, that I arrived in the place that, you know what, I don't care what society says. I don't care what my first boyfriend, that he wanted big boobs and I don't have
Yeah.
them, right? And just like falling in love with my breasts the way they are. And so that helped me, to just like completely to arrive into this self-love, that I arrived in the place that even if like the most beautiful, like Angelina Jolie or someone so
Yeah.
amazing would offer to change bodies, I would not, because this is, this is my
Yeah.
body. It's not
Yeah.
perfect, but it's mine. So that's what helped me. Like this work helped me to connect to my body, and then connecting with my partner. That when we started relationship, like how it's NRE, new relationship energy, when hormones are up, everything
Yeah.
feels so great as well. It's called honeymoon phase, right? You touch a knee and it feels amazing. And then after it passes, so usually it lasts like 2 years the longest, usually it's like 6 months, then our sex interactions went lower. And at some point we had a first child and I didn't want to have sex at all. And so then us working on exploring desires, like the core desires that in Somatica method that I trained with, they call it that we have like whatever experiences we have in childhood, then later we want to relieve that experience and to heal it in the sex. So
Mhm.
when we can feel that core desire feeling sexually, this is when we have the best sex. So we started exploring it with my partner, looking what is my core desire, what is his core desire, and how we can play that, how we can bring that. And so when I feel my core desire during sex, it feels like universe is shaking, and orgasm doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, that just created this, that like we are 8 years together and we keep exploring something new, that we go like deeper, more vulnerable, and it feels just so good.
Yeah. Um, I like that explanation, especially like the accepting your own body. I was right before we like actually started recording. I'm sitting here looking at a screen of myself until you pop
Mm.
on. So I was sitting here and I was thinking, I should do another Instagram post poll thing where I'm like, I just ask like, what's your favorite body, or what's your like favorite body part, or your favorite physical feature, or whatever. And sitting there looking at myself, I know like my favorite like feature about me is my lips, just because like I think that
Mm.
they like the shape, the fullness, like especially for a guy, like they just are nice lips. And when I think back to having to accept myself, I think back to this accidental moment. I was talking to my wife. I was playing video games. We were just texting back and forth, kind of being cute. She was in a different room, and I picked up the controller, and then she sent a text message. I picked up my phone. I went to go send a text message. One of my coworkers, a guy that I worked with, sent me a question about work. So I responded to him, threw my phone back down, went back to playing video games, and was like, oh, I never sent her that picture. So I picked up my phone, and then it wasn't anything like crazy. It was nothing more than what you would see at like if I was at the beach or something. But even still, as soon as I hit send, I realized that it was like sent to my male coworker. And I was like, welp, it's out there now. And I had to immediately, I could have been mortified and like, I'm never going to work again or whatever. But at that point, I was just like, I shouldn't feel any shame, because like, like, it happened. That's the worst thing in the world that could have ever happened. And I'm alive. I'm still, about to play this video game, and I'm still going to send the same picture to my wife. And I ended up posting it to my Instagram, and I was like, this is how shame dies. Because legitimately, I had to accept myself in that moment. And since then, it was just, I accept more about my body than I think I ever would had that not happened. So all of us have that story where it's like, well, I'm here and this is the worst thing that could happen. But, like you with your kid, it's like, hey, this person is expressing like a care, like there's more to this than what I thought. So yeah. But just had to
I love that story that you shared, because Brene Brown, I don't know if you heard about her, right?
Yeah.
She's just such a role model of like being vulnerable, right? And how she says that like shame is like a gremlin. When you put light on it, that they like hide or they die, right? So this is exactly what you did. Just allowing yourself, like, you know what, this is me. I sent picture to my coworker. So what?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like I said, like honestly, the unfortunate part about all of that is like he made a bigger deal out of that than I did, and kept bringing it up. Like even like months later, just kept bringing it up, and it got to the point where it's like, see, like the problem is that like you keep bringing this up, so you have more feelings about it than I do, and that's how I knew it wasn't a big deal. But moving on to a different question, what is it that you love most about what you do?
Yeah, there are so many scenes. I'm like, you're asking what I love most. Like, I just love it so much that after I have, like, at the end of the day, I feel like I touched people's lives. That for someone, I opened the door, someone had a realization that shame got released, because I work a lot with shame. And what you describe right now, that like when we touch sexuality, there is shame comes with it. It's ridiculous. It's crazy. And even for me, I'm thinking, I can go on podcast and talk about the most like personal, vulnerable scenes. And it's like, I don't feel shame. And there is that layer. It's like onion. I keep peeling it, right? Like there is like once in a while, I would just, oh, it hits me again. Here we go. I feel shame, right? Yeah. So that feeling that I changed something in people's lives. And for me, my sexual journey started like not very fun. Like my first experience was not great. And then I developed this story that sex is not for women, so I will never enjoy it. And so for me, being a person who removes the shame, who opens the doors, who helps people to discover desire, or someone feels intimacy for the first time, and it just, that's amazing. But there is another scene that my work is experiential. And so I use touch
Mhm.
in the work, and we have boundaries, so we don't touch genitals and we have clothes on. But then like with touch, like we create sexual energy, we create the closeness, right? And so touch is such a teaching tool. It can show a lot about person. We can explore a lot with touch. And so I get to touch my clients and they touch me because they're learning on me, like how to touch that it feels good, and
Mhm.
how to receive feedback and this and that, right? And so I just feel like, you know how people desperate for touch, that
Yeah.
humans, we need nourishing touch, and so many of us not getting enough of it. And I remember just wanting to have massages often because like I wanted someone to touch me more. Like even I have it with my partner, I still want more touch. And now I feel like I have so much touch that I'm not even thinking about massages. I just feel like, oh my God, like I have a lot of touch and it feels so good.
Yeah. I love that. I think that is something a lot of people, the touch part of that for sure is something that I think a lot of people need to like learn about themselves, but also learn about their partner. One of the things that I actually just did not too long ago, it was an exercise I heard on a podcast. I can't remember who it was. I want to say it was like Allison Ash or somebody that said it, but
Mm.
they were talking about knowing like what areas of your body that are like activated, but not necessarily like you know your typical like, oh, if you pinch a nipple or if you touch if you touch yourself just right while thinking about the right thing, like you're going to be aroused, but like just touch that feels good. So I was like, man, I don't know, I mean, I guess like maybe my shoulders, I don't, and I like did the exercises of like touching different parts and seeing what kind of, and it's like I learned that like the upper, like maybe top of my thigh towards the inside of my thigh where my knees almost touch is like
Mm.
the most like it was reactive in a way that just it made me feel slightly safe, slightly, like this feeling just makes me feel good. Like I don't know how to explain it. And I was like, huh,
Mm.
that's probably what they're talking about because I don't know how to
Oh
explain that
wow.
feeling. So,
Oh
it's like
wow.
learning those exercises and having somebody guide you and say that, I can only imagine how helpful that is.
Yeah. And how did you discover that area?
You
Like
know,
what
just
did you do to discover it?
I was just laying in bed, trying to touch my legs, touch my arms. I think the one of the first ones she said, like listed off, was like giving yourself a hug, and
Mm.
start from a hug. Touch one arm, touch the other arm, and see what areas just have a different sensation to you, and think about what that sensation is, and that requires being in your body. And I think that's a huge part of it, is being in your own body. So and
Mm.
then it was like, I'm super ticklish, and I hate saying that on air because now people are like probably going to try and tickle me when they see me. But so like my midsection, I don't enjoy being touched around my midsection necessarily, because I'm so
Mhm.
ticklish that it's like, but that's a spot that like it's not so ticklish. It's not it's got sensation, but it's not like overstimulating. It's like the right level of what feels good, and like what it just worked out while I was touching
Mm.
different parts, and like anything below my knees was just kind of like meh. So that was the only thing that I got like true, like, man, this feeling feels different. So
Mm. Mm. That's fascinating. I'm asking because I think it feels differently when you touch yourself and then when someone
mhm,
else touches you. There is like difference to that, right? That like it comes
yeah,
from a different person, but as well being touched with different tools, like
mhm,
not the hand, but like using like a fur, a feather,
yeah,
or like something more rough, like
yeah,
nails. So we have this like I do retreats for women where we have pleasure mapping exercise where we put a lot of tools in the middle of the room, and it's like it has eyes, it has the scene that is like exploring exploded air, and like
yeah,
different textures, and then they pair up, and like imagine you're laying on the ground, right, and then person is trying different tools on you, and like when you express this like they put sticker on that area, and then at
yeah.
the end you look in the mirror and you see like, oh,
No, yeah,
okay.
I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Man, that's so cool. I like the stickers thing. I think that, that's one of those things you gotta market and sell, and like people would be able to connect with their partner, and you had like an at-home kit of like something fun to do. I think that would be awesome. I can
Wow. So
imagine.
that's a great idea. I love it.
But yeah, so I wanted to ask you, I've done a little bit of research. I've listened to you and some stuff that you've said, and one of the things that struck me was how you view intimacy. And I wanted to ask, what your, I guess, opinion is on what the difference between sex and intimacy is, and can people connect with intimacy and not have it be anything sexual?
I love that you're asking it, because this is something that no one teaches us.
Yeah.
That what I experience with my clients a lot of times, that sex has shame, so they don't want to say sex, but they replace sex with intimacy. So intimacy is like a softer word. So they say intimacy, but what they mean is sex. And the truth is something that I learned, I learned myself later in life. I would love to know it when I was 16, but no one teaches, right? So what I learned, that intimacy and sex are two different things. And intimacy is closeness. And it can be mental, like we can talk about something very vulnerable, like when I remove the guard, right? Like I don't have any protection and I'm just being myself with my weaknesses. I can, like something that is difficult to talk about, I share with you and you really listen with your heart. That's intimacy right there, that we are being very close and we are not being sexual. So in a way, the topics we are covering, like, like we are creating intimacy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then intimacy can be touch, which is again non-sexual. And I show it to my clients that we start with non-sexual touch, when it's just like touching, like you would touch a child, like just touching face, like avoiding sexual areas, like not touching breasts, not touching genitals, just like nourishing touch, which feels so good. But it's not sexual, right? And then when we talk about sexuality, how I see it is like when we have that desire, we feel horny, we feel turned on, genitals are activated, right? Like that's sexuality. And we can bring them together. And there are a lot of people love them together. Like for me, when I have intimacy, I have that closeness, and then I have sex, I can cry while we have sex. Like I can just say something, like very deep, and just look in my partner's eyes and just feel like we are, one. And like that feels to me like the best sex. And there are people who they don't like intimacy and sex together. So they would prefer, they feel it's more a turn on for them to have sex like a one night stand, like something casual, but then to have intimacy, without sex. So yeah, they're totally separate. We can choose to bring them together, but they don't necessarily come together. So intimacy totally exists separately from sex. And after I learned that, now I create intimacy with as many people as I can, because this is when I can go really deep and have rich experiences that my friends, like we can talk on this like very deep topics. Like sometimes we like hold hands and we are not sexual, we are not romantically involved. It just feels good to touch another person and create that intimacy.
Yeah. I think that, again, that's a huge thing. And you said it, it's not something that people talk about. And I think a lot of times, my best friend is a girl, and we have conversations, and I always love getting her opinion on things because it's drastically different than mine. And in a way that, there's an intimacy there, because I trust that I can say these things, and that closeness, and knowing that I'm going to get a genuine response. And intimacy, like you said, it could be touch. For me, a lot of times, like intimacy is like an intelligent conversation where we're sharing, how you feel, how I feel, and it makes me feel that closeness to make me want more touch, and in the sense of like, if I was having a conversation with my wife, it's like it becomes a whole different level, and like those things spark more like connectivity in me. And they don't always have to be sexually like stimulating. It's just, it makes me feel closeness to that person. And I think, like you said, people often say, they want intimacy, and that meaning sex, but intimacy and sex are different things. And I'm glad that you're speaking on that, because it needs to be talked about.
It is. I didn't realize that, like, how many people don't know this. Like, still, I thought it was like 10 years ago, but it's like still like no one talking about it, right? Um, and something else I wanted to say, but I lost my thought. Never mind.
It happens. Well, if it come back to you, feel free to throw it back in there. But
Okay.
another thing you said is being turned on for sex is being turned on for life. And I absolutely loved that quote. And like I said, I wrote it down because it was just like, yeah. So can you tell us more about that thing?
I just before I say that, I just want to say that I feel very seen by you right
Yeah.
now. It's, like that you research stuff and you're bringing it up, and I'm like, oh yeah, I definitely said that. So I just, yeah, I feel very seen, and I really I love this feeling. So thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome.
Yeah. For feeling turned on, what I experience, and this is like my experience, but then I have like proof from Tao teachings that for my experience, when I feel sexual energy is present in me, and it doesn't necessarily mean that I have sex. Like, I might
Mhm.
have no partner and have no sex. Maybe I'm self-pleasuring all the time, or maybe I'm not bringing myself to orgasm. Just feeling that sexual energy, like I feel as a sexual being, right? That like, as I touch myself, or I look at myself, or as I walk on the street, or as I sit on the chair, like there is this feeling that, okay, I'm sexual being. And that when I am in that flow, um, in life, I feel the response in a similar way. Like, I get new exciting ideas. I can't wait to work on this project, that project, right? Like, I wake up and I want to leave my bed. Like, I want to jump out of the bed. And then when that sexual turn on is not happening, I am dragging my foot. It's almost like I barely make the day. It's everything is hard. Um,
Mhm.
and like, I need something. I need to eat candy, or I need like to drink something, or like something to just keep me going, right? That is like this life force energy is not happening in a way.
Yeah.
So that's my experience. But then when I was studying with Master Mantek Chia, it's like the Tao teachings. They explain that sexual energy is our life force energy. Um, and they say in a way that, like, we have this battery, that we have sexual energy, and so when we when we are not like thriving, when we kind of like when we are not having this like sexual flow, that battery, we are using it to live, and then like we live a shorter life. And then as well, they approach sexual energy as a healing energy. That, like, when you have, let's say, your
Mhm.
kidneys in pain, they would prescribe you certain sexual position that when you have sex, like the energy flowing through your kidney and it heals it. So it's used as a
Yeah.
medicine, which is like, this is such a powerful energy. We just underestimate it.
Yeah. I've heard, things along those lines. I wish I could remember what it was. I don't know if it was a blog post. I wish I could remember where I read it, but it was a list of things that sex can not necessarily cure, but like help with. And it was like headaches. If you're, I can't remember if it was if you were like congested, or if you were like, if it was like, if you were, I think it was, I want to say it was congested, and it was listing off things like positions to be in, and stimulations to your body that can do it, almost like uh pressure points being relieved. And I just think that
Mm.
that's just so interesting. And it sounds similar to that, where it's just, your body is one giant, conduit of energy from one point to another, from one organ to another. So like it just makes sense that energies that are exchanged and energies that are created within yourself can are good for you. So I like that.
Yeah. And I wanted to clarify that here, like, we're talking about sexual energy, that
Mm-hmm.
aliveness, the sexual turn on, not talking about rubbing genital sex.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, sadly, and I used to be one of them, like, I used to have sex just to satisfy my partner, and I wasn't enjoying it. um, I was just, just spreading my legs to have sex for the sake of having it. And that's not a type of sexual energy I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, that
So that is just like that feeling, the aliveness connecting to your body. That's what it is.
that flows perfectly into my next question, which is what is the importance of being in your body when it comes to saying yes to sex, and when you're, especially when you're in a relationship?
It's so important. It's not that it's important or not important. It's a game changer. Because a lot of times we are in the heads, right? Like how like we are thinking, and we all go there. Like I find myself a lot like analyzing kind of in the head, right? And so when we start having sex and we are in the head, we are thinking like, okay, do I go down first or they go down on me? Do I touch their side? Okay, is it time for penetration, right? Like so there is this like the brain is kind of, and body is almost like not there or a little bit
Mhm.
there. But then getting in the body, like we call it embodiment in Somatica, this like the Somatica method that I'm trained with, that like learning to really drop in the body and feel that like I am in my body, that it's almost like I can't think straight, that like my brain is completely off and just like feeling like when I feel my body and then I start connecting to another person, it's almost like our bodies feel each other and the dance is happening. So when two people who are in the bodies start like creating this dance, it's magic what happens. And intercourse doesn't matter at all in like when that happens, right?
Yeah,
That intercourse, it's like cherry on the cake. Like it's nice to have it, eventually it happens, but it's like it's not the main scene. And that's like just so important, because when people think of sex, they think intercourse, penetration, like that's it, and having orgasm. And here this like this new complete like paradigm of getting in the body and letting bodies just dance with each other and like get lost. And it's like 1 hour can just pass by, you don't even notice it. And that's what that's like you asked how important it is, that this is this is how
yeah,
important that it creates this completely new experience of like being in the body, and then this like amazing magic happens.
yeah. That's it's such a, like you said, it's not a matter of whether it's important or not important. It's a game changer. And I think that,
Yeah.
it's like a multi-tiered thing. So if you're in your body, your partner's in their body, you are both in the mindset that like this isn't just touching genitals. This is, like I was thinking about it today because I was trying to figure out, my outlook on it so I can come at this conversation with like the right mindset. And it's, it's not about the release of, an orgasm or the pleasure that comes from what you're doing. It's about the entire experience, regardless of result, regardless of pleasure. It's just about being in that moment and accepting parts of yourself, accepting parts of them, being connected with them in a way that like you said, it's like a dance, and it takes both people to be, dancing for that to happen. So like I said, it's not a matter of whether it's a yes or, important. It's a matter of like, just game changer. And I think that more people, like I would love to have like 3 of my friends come to me and be like, you'd be so proud of me. The other day I said no thank you to sex with my partner because I just wasn't where I needed to be. And that to me, it sounds really bad to be like, no, don't go, but you're just, if you're not there, you're not there. And your partner should be accepting of it. But also the next time, I guarantee it's going to be that much better because you respect yourself, you respect them, you know that you're honored, you know that you're connected, and your partner is, so you're going to want them that much more. You're going to want that feeling of I am connected to this person. And I love that line of thinking, and the kind of stuff that you talk about and the stuff that you're teaching, seems very much like it's that message. So
Oh my
just wanted
God,
to
as
say
you
that.
said, I feel it in my body. Because a lot of times it's hard to say no. Like, would you agree? It's hard to
Yeah,
say no,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like it's hard to hear and it's hard
Mm-hmm.
to say. And a lot of times we are like, we love person so much that we can say no. But then what happens here, that like when you say no to me, um, I can trust you. Then when you say yes, I can trust your yes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because it means that, okay, like he said no, that meaning that next time when you're yes, it means you're a hell yes.
Yes,
And
exactly.
it's so
Yes.
much more fun to
Yeah.
be like, to have experience, any experience, even go eat ice cream together with
Yeah.
someone who is hell yes
Yeah.
versus someone who's like, maybe, but okay.
Yeah. Me and my wife had this conversation, I don't know, maybe like 2 months ago, 3 months ago. I don't even remember what it was about. It was about like going to have ice cream. Like it was something so insignificant, but it's like, don't just agree to agree, because then like if your yes isn't an enthusiastic yes about something, then I can't trust it. And then if you can't say no, then I can't trust your yes, because you you're not saying no, and you don't want to do this thing. So it makes me question whether you're actually saying yes to this. And like I said, I wish I could remember what it was, because it was something so insignificant, but it like it's the same thing where like starting to say no to things that you don't want, regardless of what it is, and accepting the fact that I don't want this isn't for me right now, and saying it is going, especially if you're with a partner, it's going to make that relationship better. And if your partner can't accept your no, then that tells you everything about your partner, that like you don't, either they need to learn how to take the no, or you need to find another partner, because your partner that cares is going to be like, yeah, 100%, I appreciate you honoring yourself, thank you. So
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Thank you for taking care of yourself. When
yeah,
you're saying no to me, you're saying yes to
yes to
yourself. And
yourself,
how cool
exactly.
is that, right?
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's one that gets me, because it like being able to, I grew up with like, I don't want to say daddy issues, but I grew up with like a father that was in and out, and for the longest time I held on to that thing. Like that was the like a lot of what my baggage was, and I've been able to like deal with that part of it, and like feeling more free of that. It's not completely gone, because it's never completely gone, but
Yeah.
it's, it's just a situation of like, I don't feel obligated. And I used to like, that was one of the things that he used to do, is he used to obligate me to do things, and now I don't
Mm.
feel obligated. And when people try and obligate me, I used to get super mad, but I do it anyway. Now I just get a little annoyed, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that. If you can meet me in the middle, or if like I can do it on my terms, maybe. But like, yeah, so it's like, it's like you said, saying no to them is saying yes to yourself, and I love that.
Yeah. 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 I can relate to daddy issues, so I'm with you.
Yeah.
And I want
um
to add, like when I talked about embodiment, that depending how we grow up, it not always comes naturally. That for people who are just like, oh, let me get embodied, and then if it doesn't
mhm,
work, like there are like you can practice, you can learn, you can work
mhm,
with someone and help yourself, because sometimes it takes several sessions to really
yeah,
like help person get there. So don't get discouraged, that sometimes it
100%.
needs some time, right?
Mhm,
And for some people, it just happens like this. They just breathe
yep.
in and they feel in the body.
I think that that's a super important topic in the conversation of self-discovery, just in general, where every day is a new day. It's not about measuring where you were yesterday and where you should be tomorrow. It's about like accepting that day for what it is. And I think that
Mm.
a lot of the time, when like for me, I tell people, like I've been trying to heal myself for the last like 3.5, 4 years. And I'm where I am now because I took that seriously, but also took in as much message as I could from as many places as I could, because I don't know what's going to work. I don't know what's going to be helpful. I don't know what thing is going to, check the box today. And yesterday, the conversation I heard or the thing I read might have clicked and worked for yesterday. And today it's a whole new set of problems. So it's, you know, something that you have to approach with the forgiveness of, I'm not going to be perfect ever, so I don't need to be perfect today. All I need to do is work on the things that I know I want to work on. Like I have that conversation with, my daughters and my wife, and anybody that like has a conversation about healing in general. It's, you have to accept the fact that I want to change this thing. And if you don't accept the fact that you don't want to change, you want to change this thing, then you have to ask yourself, do I want to actually change this thing? And until you can answer that question, I can't answer that question for you. You're, no matter how much work they do with you, if they don't in themselves want that thing to change, it's almost impossible to do. So give yourself some grace, give yourself some forgiveness on, where you were yesterday, where you want to be tomorrow, and where you're at today. At least in my opinion, I don't know.
I love that. And with what you're saying, that I noticed that in my partner, it's not that like I don't want to be with a perfect person. That would be horrible to be with someone who is perfect. Oh my God, I would feel so inadequate.
Yeah.
But then like what I love in him, that he has those imperfect sins. He has those insecurities and he's vulnerable about them. So when he sits down with me and shares something, that just brings me closer, and I just love those imperfections in him. Versus, like if he was all perfect, then it just like, no.
Yeah. I relate to that so hard. I think that, and to me, it's those imperfections that, like, when they say something and they just like relieved a little stress on their part because they can say it, and maybe they just healed a little part of themselves, and you played a tiny role. And for me, I have a microphone in my face and I have a podcast because I love having conversations with people. So like when I know that I was a part of a conversation that just like connected with a person, that made them feel something, that like gave them something back, like I can't ask for any more than that. So like I love it. I love that so much.
Yeah, that feels deeply satisfying. And then I want to create a t-shirt that says vulnerability is hot. Because for me, I find it that when person can be vulnerable, and what I mean by vulnerable, it's not weakness. It's not that they're like whining and crying. It's that like those things that hard to say, something that is hard to admit, that like something is not perfect in me, or something is like, really difficult. That person is willing to take a step and do that. I see such a courage in it, and this is such a turn on for me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I could talk about that for forever, but I got more questions and I want to get to them. This is something that I can't experience. But why do you think that it's important for vulva owners to really take a look at themselves and appreciate every part? And how should they do this? Like I've heard, look at yourself in a mirror, like those kind of things. Like what do you suggest, and why do you think that is so important?
Yeah. That what I come across, and it used to be my experience, that like I remember that as I lay in back, like I never looked at myself. And I think for penis owners, like you, every time you go like pee, you see yourself, right? And you're out there. Like for us, for women, like for vulva owners, we need to like really grab a mirror and sit back. And so there is something that is unknown, like I don't know what is there. And then when we watch porn, it has certain shape, which is like looks like a peach. And women have like so many different shapes and so different forms. And so a lot of times when I look at myself and it looks different from what media shows, right? It's like, oh, I look ugly. So I used to think that my vulva looks horrible. And so when my partner goes down on me, I was praying that the lights are off, or if we had this like, like a light on, and I'm like, oh my God, he sees that horrible scene. And so, and like what it does, that I can't relax and enjoy, right? Because instead of like this, it goes to the whole body, that there is correlation. There is research done that the more I accept and love my body, my whole body, including genitals, the deeper I can enjoy sex. And so like thinking that my vulva is like looking not beautiful, it takes me away from enjoyment, right? So what helps, and the journey I did, that I started looking through the like this glance of like, oh, like she looks like a different flower. She's not like those I saw on screen, right? Like, but she's like a flower. And then like really accepting her and falling in love with her. And then I started like talking to her, giving her a name, and just like creating, because for a while it was neglecting, right? Like don't show it, don't look there, don't name it. So to kind of redo it, to exaggerate in a little bit, and just like treating her like she's her own person, and falling in love with her. And I had apologies. I apologized for all penetration happened when she didn't want it, and I had tears as I did that. And it was very healing, powerful process. Then I promised her that only when she feels on fire, that anything goes inside. And so the more I developed this relationship with my vulva, the more I enjoyed, the more I could feel, the more I enjoy, the more sexuality is unfolding. So it's related and it's connected. And that's why I think for women, when I have a sexuality course for women, we have this homework when they look and then they decide what the name. And a lot of times it's like flowers, associated with flowers. And then like we do this good morning ceremony, like for 30 days you wake up and the first thing in the morning you grab a mirror and you say hi to her, and like you're kind of like saying nice words to her. And it's like there is like sweetness to it. Like some women are like, oh my god, like that's too weird. But then like when they step into it and do it, it's like profound, healing happens on that level.
I love that. And it sounds, like you said, it sounds like strange at first, but like to me, I can only speak for like myself and, my journey on accepting my body. But, I think so many people have that like that image of like what a porn star should look like. And it's, if I don't look like that, then it's not, acceptable. And for guys, it's always about, like size. And
Size,
I often think, what is it that like made me think that like that's what was necessary, that's what, just because that's what I saw. And the more I thought about it, and the more that like I put myself into the position of like, what do I like, what can I look at about myself that I enjoy? Like I said, like that, what physical features, and, are there times that, again, this is one of those, like every day is different. So like you have to wake up and say, pick a day where you're like, hey, like I love that thought, because to me, it's like, sometimes do I wish I was a little bit bigger, or do I wish that, I was this, or, that, yeah, absolutely. But that's insecurity when I'm, in my body, and I'm thinking about, how much I enjoy myself just being who I am. It's like, I love the way that I look. I love the way that, that the size, the shape, everything about it, because that's me. That's, and it's always been me. It will always be me. So why have that shame about it? And in those moments, it's, like, a deep dark place that like gets a light turned on, and you're just like, okay, like I'm confident enough to do whatever I got to do going forward. So I love, if the ladies out there, the vulva owners out there are listening, and start a practice like that, just once a month, maybe, so just something to like, to appreciate yourself. And I guarantee, like it'll make a difference. Another side story, but this is just like completely, it just popped in my head, so you'll also get a kick out of this. On Wednesdays, it's like hump day. So I used to, when I was, like I said, years ago, I used to take like a butt picture of myself. And it's a thing that I've never like loved about myself. People always are like, you have like no ass at all, this, that, and the other thing. It's not that I don't have an ass. It's just that like I have really long legs. I sag my pants. So my butt is a lot higher than it looks like it is. And so it falls into this thing of like, I feel bad about it. So, I was like, what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna take a butt picture so I feel good about it. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't get posted or anything, but like, it's just something to make myself feel better. So every Wednesday morning, I used to be off on Wednesdays. Every Wednesday morning I would take a picture and just be like, I love my butt. Like like, that's a good picture. That made me feel really good. And that boosts my confidence level about just who I am as a person, let alone as like a sexual being. So it's like, I think that the message out there saying like, take a mirror, say hello, say good morning, positive affirmations in the morning, and apologies. And so I think that that's huge. So thank you for sharing that. I love it.
Oh my God. And I love your butt story. That's just so cool. And it's just like when you are in that place that like I love my body no matter what. I just love it. It feels so good. Your partner, when you're having sex, they feel it.
Hmm.
Like they feel that they are interacting with the body that is loved, and this body is so much fun to interact with versus when you're like, ooh, like something is wrong with me.
Yeah.
So yeah. Yeah,
I
and I
love that.
want to add one more quick thing, that like on all this topic, that like I do retreats for women, and at a higher level, when it's more advanced, we have this very profound experience when women sit in a circle and we create this like spiritual, very honoring atmosphere, and women show their yoni, like their vulva, and then like we go around and we bow, we look and we bow, and I a lot of times like so deeply touched that, like, to be that woman who is like sitting and like kind of like sharing, and other women just like looking with so much love. But then as I look at different vulvas, they're so different and all of them are beautiful. And the vulva doesn't show age. This is what I noticed.
Hmm.
It's fascinating that no matter like looking at vulva, I can't tell age. So it doesn't age. It's
Yeah.
always like looking. Mm.
I don't remember. Again, it's something I read or something I listened to, and they were talking about that the elasticity in the skin because of blood flow or something. I guess maybe it doesn't, it tends to not. So I think that just like on a biological like standpoint is just so miraculously like amazing. So but
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
nerd for stuff like that. So but yeah, well, we are coming in on the end of the episode, and I told you, I had a couple of this or that questions for you, and now I wish I had
Mhm.
different ones, because I didn't know what to expect in this conversation, and I feel like these ones are kind of like, I don't know, there's I feel like I could have done better, but I'll give you the first one. Giving the best sexual experience or receiving the best sexual experience?
And I can't do both. I can choose just one, right?
Yeah.
So for me, receiving. I
Yeah.
love receiving. I'm on receiving end, and I just like I'm a very good receiver. I know I can receive really well, and I love receiving.
Okay. Fair. I can appreciate that answer. Uh, creating the next one is creating a movement of acceptance or joining in with others to create a full community of love and support.
Full community of love and support.
Yeah, that's as we've talked about, that's where I'm at, is like creating a community of, like we have a lot of creatives on, we have a lot of open-minded people on, and I think that creating that community, and a diverse community, that everybody, no matter what your thing is, you're welcome, to me is like what I want. I often say, for some reason, I don't know if I wish I could remember. It's one of like the old like Christmas movies where like they were like puppets, and it had an island of misfit toys. I always say I'm the like emperor or the king of like the Isle of Misfit Toys, because I collect all these people that don't feel welcomed anywhere, because people are so, it's like, oh, you're weird, or oh, that thing is strange, or oh, you
Mm.
want to talk about that, or oh, you like that. Those people to me are the people that, like, just walking down the street, I see them and I'm like, ooh, I want to have a conversation with you because you look like you have something you want to talk about, and nobody asks you. And I love that, because you find out the most interesting things talking to people, just taking a chance, and it's like, oh wow, I had no idea that was and I love that. So I'm glad you also are one of the community builders that I've gotten on here. So um
Hmm.
I guess I got, since I had two bad or like easy-ish this or that, I will ask you one last question. And what would you love to educate every young person on when it comes to sex?
Oh, yeah, this is such a topic, like how to get to educating young first people, because most people that I work with, they're 40 plus. I feel
Hmm.
like people go through some pain, they go through divorce or something, and then they seek,
Hmm.
coaching.
Yeah.
But then, like, if we only knew this as we are young, as we start our sex life, right? How to bring this knowledge to people who are starting. And the big one, that what you asked earlier, the intimacy and sex, that they are two different scenes. So don't try to have sex and get intimacy from it. You might not find it. Just know this, like that there are these two different scenes. And then for young people, boundaries, like how you talked about no. But in general, like knowing, understanding what are my boundaries, what feels good, what are my body boundaries, what are my interacting with people, how close, what I want, what I don't want, what are my life boundaries. Just really inquiring and understanding boundaries and communicating them, and like arriving in consent, that like people care about other person's boundaries. If someone is hesitant that there are maybe, then like just pause and let them feel into it, and just just that people can respect that for each other. Then we would be in so much better place than as a society, I think.
Yeah, that was a perfect answer. And this was a really fun interview to do. I am so glad that like I said, taking the chance on, reaching out and accepting and, having a conversation, via email real quick and being like, yeah, let's have a conversation. You never know what they're going to turn out to be. So I am super glad that I got you on. And I hope you had a blast having this conversation with me today.
I did. Oh my God, I did. I love how your questions are very deep and they're connected. Like you're really connected to what I'm answering and you bounce off it. I think we just like, we got in this flow. This was an example of how people just connect in flow it just going. I'm like, what? We spent 55 minutes? I can't believe it. It feels like 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's the when it comes to podcasting on this side, the host side, that's always like the hard part, is I got a list of questions and I'm trying to like look at my questions, look at the time, and it's like, man, we've been talking for like how long? I don't know if I'm going to be able to get to all of this. And then it's like trying to make the conversation continue to flow, but more importantly, it's about like fostering a good conversation, which I think we were able to do. And I hope the listeners enjoyed it. If they wanted to look you up, how can they do that?
Yeah, so my website is lyubavenable.com, and I will ask you to list it under the episode. Yep. That when you go on my website, that's like you can read more about what I do, but then there is a 15-minute free call that if you're curious, I invite you to just schedule it, and then we get on the phone and I answer your questions, and then we see if I can be in help, like if what I'm offering, the experiential sex and relationship coaching, if it's something that could work for you, we discover it on the call. So just if you're interested, just schedule a call and we will talk.
Yeah, well, thank you. I will link that in the show notes. Like I said, I can't thank you enough for popping on here and having this conversation with me. And I hope you have a good day. And listeners, I hope if you're listening to this in the morning, you have a good day. If you're listening to this at night, you have a good night. Maybe, start some conversations with your partners and, create that dance that we were talking about.
Yay. My heart is smiling. Thank you.
The bell is about to ring. If you want to drop us a voice message or simply ask a question, you can do that by clicking the link in the show notes below. Be sure to leave us a 5-star review. It helps more people find us. Theme music by Kinsey. More music available on Spotify. Remember, every day is a class. Go learn something.